here we go. End of a new week. Start of a new week coming after the weekend. So let's take a little look at the market and see what we can expect over the coming 5 days. So looking on the weekly outlook, first of all, we can see that on gold here we had a bearish week as predicted. That was for a number of reasons. That's what the price action told us, but fundamentally that's what we were looking at based on the news and events that were going to be released around the US dollar and continuing with that bullish strength of the US dollar, hence pushing gold in a bearish direction. So you can see that as we've ended the week, we've started to come around to an area of support for gold at this point. You can see if we just draw a little line across there, that we're starting to get some support on that weekly time frame around there. Now, if we come down onto the daily time frame for gold, so we can just see exactly where that support was forming. You can see it was resistance over here and so on. So that looks like a really sort of clear area with not very much going on the left hand side here. We haven't got any sort of clean zones to push into. So what we might expect to see, one possibility for next week, is if it does continue down in its bearish momentum, we might see a little break of these lows with a little retest of this area to then continue down a little bit further. So we might expect somewhere around the sort of 1775, 1780 area perhaps. So that would be one possibility of what we may see happen over the next few days. Looking at that, if we just go back to the weekly for a second, so that means that our next weekly candle would basically just push us straight down in this sort of direction. That's what it would look like, and it would probably max out somewhere around where we're getting these rejection wicks around here. So this kind of area is probably where we would be targeting. Okay, so that's one possibility if it continues in that bearish momentum. What we alternatively could see, just come back to the daily for a second, is we might just see a little bounce off of this zone. So instead what we might see is just a little kind of bounce off of here. We might then end up retesting this area to then press up and come up to maybe 1840, 1850, who knows, we even push a little bit higher up towards that 1865 area, which is quite a good key area of interest. So we'll be looking out for those two possibilities on gold over the next few days. So GBP, JPY, if we come to the weekly first of all, as predicted at the start of the week, we had quite a bearish week. So we had a good push up there. You can see we kind of rejected this area of resistance right around here. And you can see if we just push that further across, that is an area of resistance and support in both directions there. So looking at that then, that was on the weekly. If we just kind of drop down to the daily, you can see that we had a good push up towards the back end of the week with a little pullback to then maybe continue on. Now if you look to the left, that was a really nice clean zone. So because we had that sort of clean zone to this left hand side, you would expect a clean zone to the right, which is exactly what we got. Hence why last week I said we would expect a big push up to that area, which is what we got. Now what we may expect to see this week is to see if we can continue to break this area of resistance, potentially retest it as support, to then continue back up in this general direction. Now whether that happens all this week or into the week after or the week after that, potentially we'll just have to wait and see. But I would certainly expect at some point to see some sort of retest of this 166, 166.50 area, somewhere around that sort of general idea. The reason for that is, again, fundamentals, looking at what's happened in the financial news over the last week. Just on Friday morning, the Bank of Japan, they've just released a new guy taking charge of the Bank of Japan, who has come out and basically set out that their monetary policies are going to be very much the same as the last person that was in charge. Now, if you followed those fundamental try again. If you followed those fundamentals like you should be doing, you will know that they've had a very loose monetary policy, and the implication of that is quite a weak Japanese yen. So because they've come out and said very much the same, they're going to have quite a loose hold on things, they're not going to be tightening up, they're not going to be raising the rates due to inflation, etc., which would strengthen the currency, we can expect the yen to still remain quite weak, meaning that pairs paired up against it, GBP for example in this instance here, we can expect that to potentially push and continue in its bullish direction. So over the next week or so, I would be expecting a big push up on GBP, aiming towards that 165, 166 area. And certainly coming down to smaller time frames, looking at the 4 hour for example, you can see what we've got on the 4 hour there. So we had a big rejection from this area of support right down here, and you can see we broke through that. We've retested it, a good thorough retest of that in fact, and then we've pushed right off there. Now again, looking at that on the 4 hour, that's still quite a nice clear area up here, so we could probably expect Monday when the market opens, what if we get a new candle breaking above there, we can expect a nice little push up of that area, potentially retesting that, come back down, break through, and it'll probably go something along those lines. News wise, let's take a little look at the news and see what we can expect over the next few days. So just looking ahead into next week, here we go. So next week on Monday we've got some orange folder news going on, but nothing too concerning in that regard. Same with the US dollar. Tuesday we've got some red folder news coming in, so that'll be worth looking at. Wednesday, same kind of thing. It looks like we've got the Bank of England Governor Bailey speaking, so that will be worth tuning into on that one there. And then looking down some more red folder news coming on Friday. Now in terms of red folder news, what you also get, remember, is you get the unemployment claims, so you get non-farm payroll, so that is normally the first Friday of a month, and that's really kind of important to keep an eye out on that to see what the new unemployment figures are, and just try and determine how much strength or weakness that'll bring to the US dollar. Obviously that would have a big impact on gold for us. So overall, that's our outlook on the market for this week. We'll see what happens. So in summary, we are potentially expecting a nice push up on the pound against the yen. And in terms of gold, we're looking for that to potentially either form some support here to then retest and go, or we may see a little breakdown and then again a little retest of that area, just heading towards that 1780, 1770 area, continuing down in its general track there. And again, looking to the left hand side, remember when we're trying to execute trades, you're looking for nice clean areas of interest to be able to do that. Okay, good luck with the week coming up. Let's see how we get on. Hope you all have a good, successful week and a restful weekend. Thanks.